Hello ladies and gents, welcome to another repair video. Today we're going to be looking at this PS4 original which has been sent in for a blue light of death. This is a business customer who sent this particular console in, as they send quite a few consoles, and this particular one originally went to the company for a HDMI port replacement, and then it got determined as blue light of death, so they sent it over to me. So what I'm going to do before I go ahead and take it apart is just turn it on, see what's happening, see if we can figure out what's wrong with it, and see if we can get any kind of indication of what might be the cause of a blue light of death. So as you can see, I've got a power lead and a HDMI lead in, and I'm going to turn it on. Okay, we've got no disc feed by the look of it. I'm not sure if we've got a fan, but it looks like we've got nothing else on, nothing coming up on the screen as well. But that hard drive is spinning incredibly quick, so I'm not sure if this is going to come across on camera. So I'm hoping you can hear that. But something in there is not right. Something is spinning very quickly, and it's not going to a white light by the looks of it. Yeah, that's certainly not normal with the hard drive spinning that fast. So let's try and shut it down. Okay. So let's take it the hard drive, and that's been put in incorrectly for a start. That's very tight. Oh, don't turn it back on. And that's been really wedged in there good. Yeah, that's been really wedged in there good. Oh wow. Okay, so the disk drive is spinning really fast as well. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to try and get into safe mode. So let's wait a couple of seconds and then try and turn it on. Okay, so is it the hard drive or is it the disk drive that's spinning that fast? Right, is that going? No, that's not going into safe mode. Okay. Fine. Okay, right, so let's first of all I'm going to test this hard drive, because I want to know if this hard drive is working, because that was really wedged in there good. So I'm going to get my external enclosure, which I've butchered for easy access, and I'm going to pop that in there, and I'm going to take the power cable out of my soldering iron. Oh damn it. Come on, there we go. Okay, so power supply out of my soldering iron, I'm going to set that to 12 volts. There we go, 11.9, close enough. Okay, right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to pop over to desktop. There we go. And let's refresh this. So right now at the moment it's reading that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 drives in this computer. So let's refresh it and see if we pick anything up for this. Okay, so let's go back over. And that hard drive is bad. So that hard drive that you can see on the screen now, if we just compare, if we take a look at the, I'll put it the right way around so you can actually see it. So where's this serial? Let me just find the serial number. Ah, there it is, never mind. So as you can see, 1407, blah 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 blah, and it matches the one on the computer. So that is definitely a bad drive, at least. So that could be the cause of a blue light of death. So what I'm going to do is, before I go ahead any further, I'm going to take a working hard drive. Here's one I made earlier. So this is the customer's drive, and this is one out of another console. It's not going to load the software, but if we load it up to the external enclosure, you can see it's flashing right now because there's nothing plugged in. Plug that in, there we go. And if we go back onto Crystal Disk Info, we can rescan. And you can see we've got a good disk there, disk number 10. And, well, it's actually disk 11, but they start from 0. And the serial number on this one ends in 180. And where's the serial number on there? There it is. So the serial number on this one, 180. So we know this drive is good. So let's go ahead and pop that in. And let's pop the customer's drive out the way. Let's turn this on. We still have no disk feed, but do we have anything coming up? So I'm going to load up my capture card again. And it was actually the disk drive that's spinning really fast, not the hard drive. I thought it was a hard drive, but it's not. It actually appears to be the disk drive that's spinning really fast, because it appears that there's a disk stuck in there, and that the disk in particular, the disk drive isn't allowing for a disk feed. So let's see if this goes to a white light with this working hard drive in it. Because blue light of death, pulsing blue light of death is a general error, so it's not always necessarily the APU what's at fault. And it could well be the hard drive. I have had that before. It could be something on the disk drive, and it could be pretty much anything. So we need to basically eliminate a few things, try and figure out what it is. And it doesn't appear to be going to a white light, does it? So we probably should have got a white light by now. Definitely got no disk feed. However, that could be something with the way it's been reassembled, because I have noticed there is a screw missing in the back. And obviously with the hard drive, the way that was assembled, you know, anything could have happened to this disk drive. So I will check it, and that console is actually cracked. I have noticed that the console's cracked, so this could well be down to drop damage. So this might be a failure from the start, but we'll have a look. We'll see if we can figure it out. That's not going to a white light. I can feel the fan going, so chances are we probably don't have an issue with the south bridge. However, I'm going to check a USB, and the reason I'm going to check a USB is because if we've got an issue with the south bridge, we might not get power to the USB. No power to the USB. So that's interesting. No power to USB. Whether it's initialized power to the USB yet, I don't know. Okay, so let's unplug this then. And let's unscrew. I've just lost a screw somewhere. I don't know what that was. Never mind. Okay, so let's unscrew the bottom, because I have noticed that the case is a bit cracked. So I do want to see if we have a disk feed when I unscrew the bottom. But it is interesting that we're not getting any disk feed and we're not getting any front USB. That's quite interesting. Okay, it's very dirty. Right, so let's see. Let's see now if we get any power to the disk drive. So we should hear a beep even if the console's off. And yes, we do. And there is a disc in there, it's FIFA 20. So I'll keep that safe for the customer. So the disk drive appears to be working okay. However, we are still stuck on a blue light of death. Or at least that's what it appears. Let's see if it loads up this time, just out of curiosity. No, nothing. That's not going to load up to the white light. Okay, so the next thing I want to try, I'm going to get rid of this hard drive for now. We don't actually need a hard drive to get to a white light, it'll just come up cannot access system storage. So the next thing I want to do is I want to rule out whether it's an APU issue or not, or whether an APU reball will help. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put a couple of washers underneath the APU itself. Now, I don't recommend doing this at all. It is not a fix, it is not the way to repair these consoles. However, it is going to give me a general idea of whether or not the APU could be at fault, because if, for example, the console turns on and goes to a white light, if I put washers under there, then it's going to give me an idea and say, yes, this is an APU issue, and we need to either reflow or reball the APU. So that's the only reason that I'm going to be putting these washers under here. No other reason. I'm not going to be using this as a repair. It is not a repair, and it's just a means to an end to get people by. However, it does over time cause more damage than it fixes, because it potentially warps the board and cracks the solder balls more when the washers are released. So I don't recommend doing this as a permanent repair. It's okay to do for a few minutes just to see what happens, but as a prolonged repair, this is not a viable option at all, and I do not recommend it at all. And I do frown upon anyone who does this as a permanent repair as well. It is a very annoying thing to see. I had one a couple of days ago, or actually I had one a couple of weeks ago rather, where I had washers I saw washers underneath the clamp, and it came in for no display. And the display was working fine after I'd replaced the HDMI encoder. It was working fine for a week or two, and then it died. And it was because of the washers under the APU causing an issue with the GPU itself, and basically it killed the system beyond repair. And just out of pity for the customer, I've ended up replacing the board, and I've actually given up a version 5.5 motherboard just to replace the board for the customer, just because I felt a little bit sorry for him, because he's paid someone to do that repair, and it was actually these particular washers. So I've ended up replacing those for the customer, or replacing the board for the customer at the same price as what I charged for the encoder. Okay, so I'm going to see if these washers allow it to go to a white light, and if it does, then I'll be reflowing the APU. And that's interesting, there's no fan spin now. Oh, damn it. Oh, hello. Hello, white light. How are you? And then it shuts off. Right, so this is likely going to be an APU issue. Still got nothing on the screen. Let's turn it back off a sec. I did get a white light then. I'm pretty sure that come across on camera. I did get a white light for a minute. So I'm going to say this is probably an APU issue. Most likely. Yep. White light straight away. Is it going to come up on screen? Yes or no? Yes. So we are getting something up on the screen. However, this is going to need a new hard drive as well as the APU sorting out. Right, what I'm going to do... Right, let's leave it there for a second, see if it goes off. Just for, 10 seconds or so. And then I'm going to start loosening these off. So you can see we still have a white light there. I'll just zoom in on that so you can see. Okay, so I'm going to start loosening these off. And the screen's gone off straight away. Straight away that screen went off. And now it won't even... Oh, there you go. Okay, so it's turned off. I've seen enough. A reflow is going to help. And that's what I'm going to do. So let's get this off before it does any damage to the board. I mean, a couple of days wouldn't hurt, but prolonged use with washers underneath, not good for the machine at all. Not good for the machine at all. I only did that for testing purposes and to confirm suspicions. So do not do that as a permanent fix, because it is not a permanent fix. Right, let's take a look at that HDMI port. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that port. It is, of course... Actually, yes, there is something wrong with that port. Okay, so... Right, this has got a lot of problems. I'm not going to reflow it yet. No, I'm not reflowing it yet. I'm going to change that HDMI port first. Because as you can see from that pin at the back, that port is clearly damaged. So, it looks okay from the front, but that port is very, very clearly damaged. So I'm not going to be replacing... I'm not going to be doing any kind of reflows yet. Because it could well be HDMI related. And putting the clamps under there could have just been a fluke. And I could have just got that HDMI port just in the right position for it to work. So I'm not going to be doing any kind of reflow until I've changed that HDMI port and tested it again without clamps. Because yeah, it could kill the machine. Reflowing it could kill the machine point blank, and obviously I don't want that to happen, so I'm not going to be doing that yet. I mean, if it's dead and we reflow it and it ends up, well, not killing it, but it doesn't end up fixing it, then you haven't lost anything. But if it's down to the fact that if it's down to the HDMI port and we reflow it and it kills the machine, then, you know, we have lost something, because we've basically killed a perfectly working machine. So yeah, I'm going to avoid that, and what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to get this HDMI port off. I'm going to replace it, put a new HDMI port on, solder it down, and we'll test it again, because that's going to be the easiest repair to fix this blue light of death, and hopefully that's what causes the issue. So let's go ahead and get the microscope set up, and we'll see what we can do about getting this fixed. What I'm going to do before we go under the microscope and take a closer look at the circuit, I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to go ahead and remove this HDMI port. So I've got my heat on the hot air station set to 480 degrees C, and the airflow is set to 80%. Yours may vary depending on your model. This is my particular heat gun, and this is the temperature I like to work at. I like to have maximum heat when I'm working with the HDMI port, just because they're so difficult to get off as a general rule. Okay, so that's pretty warm now in that general area, so I'm going to come in really close. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my tweezers and hold the port onto the board. And the reason that I'm going to do that is because I want this board to fully penetrate the heat, and I also want the heat to fully melt the solder before this port tries to drop out. We don't want to tear any pads by doing this, and by holding the port in place, that's going to basically allow us to keep the board safe from damaging it while we're removing this port. And it shouldn't take long. We're going to see the solder start to melt shortly, and you'll notice I'm back and forth with the nozzle from one side of the port to the other. That's just to evenly distribute the heat around the HDMI port. Okay, and now I can see the port starting to move. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to put the heat gun down, and I'll just zoom out a little bit now. Let's go back to a somewhat normal view. You'll have to excuse the bad lighting. I'll flip the board around, and we can take a closer look at this HDMI port now. So as you can see, we've got some damaged pins on the back, and that's the problem with these original PS4 HDMI ports. The pins, when they're pushing, they push right the way through the board, and usually they break the traces on the board. Luckily this time it hasn't. But if we take a look at the board itself, you'll see that because of the method that I used to remove the HDMI port, we've got absolutely no damage whatsoever to it. So that's always good. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hang the board back over the edge of the table, and I'm going to use the same method again to remove the solder from out of these ground legs. So I'm going to use my solder sucker, and I'm going to heat up from the bottom. Right, now we can go under the microscope and actually get the new port soldered. But first I want to clean off the old port, or the old area. So I'm going to flip the board back round. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some wick, and I'm going to clean off the pads themselves, and then we'll apply some fresh leaded solder, and then we can pop a new port on and start soldering it into place. So I'm going to get my power cable back out of my USB hard drive caddy so I can power up my soldering iron, and let's move it away from there because I don't want to melt them connectors. Okay, I forgot to set it back to 19 volts. Right, so that's warming up. Really doesn't take long for this. And I've got a beveled tip on, and that is already up to temperature, 450 degrees, which is the maximum that this iron will go. It is running modified firmware to allow it to go to 450. But I'm just going to go ahead and wick away these pads. Now I'm going to go in an up and down motion with this because I don't want to end up ripping pads off because I'm going the wrong way. So I'm just going to gently wick away these pads. There we go. Okay, so let's clean up the board. bit of isopropyl alcohol and a cotton swab. Just give the board a little clean there. And it looks like we have a missing protection diode, so I'll show you that under the microscope in a minute. But we have a missing protection diode on the HDMI circuit, so it looks like someone's definitely had a little fumble around here. And I seem to have a stray hair there, probably off my paintbrush. Right, so now I'm just going to pre-apply a little bit of solder to the end of my iron tip. Just like so. And I'm just going to drag across these pads. Okay, that's good. Right, so I did get a little bit of solder in this ground hole here, so I'm going to try and wick that away, and if not I'll have to use the solder sucker again. And for some reason my iron keeps turning off. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pop the microscope camera on. I'm going to switch over to the microscope camera so we can see a bit closer, and then we'll get a new port fitted and then get it tested, and hopefully it gets rid of that blue light of death, and if not then it's going to mean reflowing it. So like I said, we've got a missing diode here on the HDMI circuit. This is a protection diode, and yes, the console will work without this diode here, but given the fact that it's missing and we're working on the HDMI circuit anyway and we know it's missing, I'm going to replace it. So I'm going to find a board that I've still got that diode on, because I don't actually know the value of that diode. Well, I'm going to find a board that's got that diode on, and I'm going to take it off a donor board and get it onto this board, just so as we can complete that circuit sort of thing. Okay, so I've got a board, but before I actually go ahead and take it off there, because it's a small diode, before I go ahead and take it off there, I'm going to tin these pads, because I want to be able to drop it on as quickly as I possibly can. I don't want to hold it in the tweezers too long, and if I put it down I'm never going to find it again. So if I tin the pads now, then I can make sure that this board is fully prepped and ready for a diode to go on. Okay, so those pads are tinned, and this one looks like it's out of place down here. So this is another protection diode. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tin these pads here, and then I'm going to reflow this one into place. Someone's definitely had a little mess down here, so I'm going to reflow this one into place first of all using hot air. Okay, that's good. So that's in position. So what I'm going to do, before I replace that other one, I'm going to test this one that I've just reflowed into place. So I'm going to pop my multimeter into diode mode. That's the mode that's got a little arrow on it, or it looks like an arrow. And it basically means that the current's only going to flow in one direction. And I'm going to pop one probe on ground, which is going to be my red probe. So I've got one probe on ground here, as you can see. Whoops, got a little bit tangled there, and I'm going to put my other probe on the one end of this diode, so just there, and I get a reading of 589. So that's working absolutely fine, and or rather we can actually do it like this as well. So we can actually do it from one end of the diode to the other, and we're still getting the same reading. It is increasing because the board's cooling down, but if we flip the leads around, we get OL. So this diode is doing its job and it's working absolutely fine. So like I said, I'm going to take a diode off a donor board, and then I'm just going to come straight in with the hot air and I'm going to get it replaced. So this just here is my donor board, and as you can see we do have that diode there. So I'm going to take that off this board, and then I'm going to put it onto this board here, which is the board that I'm working on. So as you can see, it is missing from there. It looks like it is the only other component missing. So let's center that shot. And there's no point in showing you the removal process. I'm doing exactly what I'm doing on the other board, just heating it up and removing it from this board. Okay, that's soldered. So that circuit appears to now be complete again. And I'm going to do exactly what I did before. I'm going to use diode mode on the multimeter. And we get OL that way. And what are we getting this way? You'll have to trust me when I give you the readings off the multimeter, unfortunately. 524, but that is increasing because of the temperature of the board. Yep, 526, 527, 528. Yep, okay, that's going up. Right, okay, so let's get a new HDMI port on here then. So I'm going to be using a V2 port for this. Now, I don't have any brand new ports, but I do have one that I've taken off another donor board. So I'm going to get a V2 port on. If you don't know, a V2 port is the one that uses the solid plastic back. And the reason that these ones are better than the originals is because the pins can't push themselves through like you saw on the one that came off this. So this one just here, and you can see how common it is. I actually did one a couple of days ago, and that one was a pretty bad one. That one did need a EMI filter, so that was that one. And you can see all those pins pushed backwards there. It's pretty annoying when it happens, because most of the time what happens is it will blow the EMI filter at the same time. Really bad design on Sony's part, of course. Bit of an oversight, but it is what it is, and these things happen. So yeah, let's get this port into position. So you'll notice that I've pushed this down as far as it will go, and if we take a look on a slight angle, you'll see that this port is very close to meeting those pads, and that's good, because that means that we're going to be able to solder those without any issue. It's dead in line with the port itself, or with the pads, so it means that's going to line up perfectly when we put it back together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bit of flux, because we always want to use flux when we're soldering. And I'm just going to warm up my soldering iron, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to reflow all of these pads that I've just pre-tinned using the soldering iron. I do have a little bit of solder on there, let's get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is just come in and tap each one of these pins, and you can actually see those pins reflowing. Okay, so all of those are reflowed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to drag over the top of them. Just make sure we've got a nice connection on each one. We do have a little bridge on the end. That's okay, we can deal with that. Let's add a bit more flux. Okay, so let's clean up. Let's take a look at that. Okay, let's dry off this isopropyl alcohol. There we go. And I think it's actually just melty plastic. Cool. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with a pair of tweezers again, and I'm just going to give each of these pins a nudge test. And what I'm going to do there is basically just make sure that each of these are soldered, and any that are not actually soldered, I can go back with a soldering iron and touch up on them. Okay, that seems to be good on all pins. We seem to be okay there, but I'm going to make sure that we don't have a bridge on those two end pins anyway, because I can't be 100% certain. So I'm going to use the multimeter in continuity mode again. I'll just clean up before we do that. And then I'll just use the multimeter in continuity mode and check those two pins against each other. Make sure we don't have any kind of bridge. And then we can hopefully carry on. So let's take the multimeter again. So I'm going to pop one probe on pin number 19. It does appear good. I'm going to try and get it on an angle so you guys can see. So apologies if you hear some rustling now, because this is right by my microphone. So we've got one probe on pin 19. And another probe on pin 18. And no bridge. So that seems good. Excellent. So that port is now on. So I'm going to flip the board around. And now we come to the ground legs. So before I do anything, I just want to clean up. Just get rid of any flux that might have leaked through. And also there's a little bit of debris on this pin as well. So let's clear that away. There we go. Make sure those legs are nice and clean before we try and solder them to anything. Awesome. So let's just dry that. Excellent. Okay, so exactly the same as with the pins on the back. Let's pop some flux down. And this time, rather than pre-applying some solder to the end of the tip, I'm just going to transfer the heat on this leg. Wait for that heat to penetrate. Okay, so that port is nicely soldered there. Just about ready now to go ahead and retest. So let's flick back over to the overhead cam and let's get this back inside the console and give it a test, shall we? So let's go ahead and try and turn this on now in 3, 2, 1. It doesn't appear to be going white so far. So this might need a reflow as well. Do we have fan spin? Yes we do. Do we have disk drive? Yes we do. It's not going white, is it? So it looks like we might have an issue with the APU as well. I'm going to try the clamps again, just to double confirm that it is an APU issue. So those are as tight as they'll go at the moment, those clamps. And that went white, straight away. Straight away that went white. However, we don't appear to have any... Oh, we do, yeah. Okay, so can I start the PS4? Can't access system storage. Right, this is going to need a reflow on the APU. Okay. Oh, okay. There we go. Right, so that's about as clean as we need it to be. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a bead of solder around the edges of the APU. it is now 10:05 at night. It's quite cold now, so I'm just going to warm up my flux. There we go. And I'm going to add a bead of flux around the edge. Okay, so there's a nice bead of flux around the edges of the APU. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take a bit of Kapton tape. So Kapton tape is heat reflective tape, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover up the sensitive areas of the board. So that's going to include these RAM chips here. So I'm just going to put a couple of rows of Kapton tape over there. There we go. Okay, so that's got a couple of layers of Kapton tape on there. So I'm going to set the rework station up, and I'll set the camera up so as you can see the rework station, and then we'll get this thing reflowed and hopefully get this thing working. Right, okay ladies and gents, so here is the rework station. As you can see here, we've got the motherboard on the station, and the plate itself is directly above the chip, dead center, and it also appears to be dead center on the other side as well, so we should be just about good to go here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the rework station. Because it's quite cold outside, I'm going to actually turn this on, and I'm going to let the rework station heat up for a minute. So it's currently on 15 degrees, which is a little bit cold compared to what I'm used to using the profile on. The temperature I'm used to working in is around about 24 to 25. So I'm going to run the profile just for 10 seconds, basically just to heat up the machine, just to around about 25-26 degrees, which is what I'm usually working at. So I'm going to do that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the profile and restart it, and then I'm going to run the normal profile, which is going to turn this bottom plate on, and that's just about on 26 degrees on the bottom plate now, so that's good. Excellent. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the bottom plate on. That's going to stay there for around about 3 minutes roughly, and what that's going to do is it's going to allow the bottom plate itself to reach 200 degrees. Once it reaches 200 degrees, or once it gets to 3 minutes rather, the top plate's going to kick in. It's going to gradually increase at 1 degree per second until we get to 100 degrees. It's going to freeze there for around about 20 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds, and then it's going to gradually climb and climb and climb until it reaches solder melting temperature, which is around about 220 degrees. Every so often it's going to hold the temperature, allow the board to catch up, and then carry on moving up and up and up until it gets to 220 degrees. When the solder has fully melted underneath the chip itself, underneath the APU, I'm going to give it a nudge with a pair of tweezers, and I'm going to give it a nudge really gently, just to see that all of the balls are melted underneath the chip, and that's going to reflow them all back into shape, get rid of any misformations and any kind of cracks that are in the solder balls, and hopefully that's going to restore all of the connections and get this thing working again. So I'm going to start the profile now. I'll fast forward through this bit obviously, but it's basically going to run at 1 degree per second, slowly climb, and basically just go from there until we reach melting temperature. So I'll resume the video when we get a little bit closer, but for now I'll just fast forward through. Right, okay ladies and gents, so the bottom plate is now on exactly 200 degrees. For some reason the top plate has kicked in before it got to 200 degrees though, which means that it's a lot colder in here than I thought. And yeah, it might take a little bit longer holding the top plate temperature to be able to get the job done, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue. It's not too much out in terms of temperature. But it shouldn't be too much of an issue. So I'm going to turn the top light on now so I can actually see what I'm doing, and you'll see pretty soon that the flux is going to start to bubble. The top plate temperature is 120 right now, and the actual temperature where the probe is reading 96, but that's not exact. So let's pop the probe right on the APU, and yep, that's reading 120, 130, 140. Okay, so the temperature right now is around 4 degrees lower than what the top plate temperature is. So it's currently reading, it was currently reading 146, but the top plate temperature was reading 150. So it's around about 4 degrees difference. Right now it's on 166, so it's about 162 on the top. It is increasing at a nice steady pace. Let's just get another reading. It's a little bit out, about 10 degrees out now, but it is holding on 180 degrees, so it does give it time to catch up. And top plate's about to kick in again, and we're now reading 195, so it is, the temperature there is now above what the top plate's reading, which is good. And the flux is starting to bubble. Right, so I'm going to lift this top plate up and just give this APU a little nudge. Not quite there yet. Very, very close. Still not quite there. Some of those balls will be melted. Some of them are not. Yep, that's done. Very gentle tap there, and the APU did move. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that out of the way. As you can see, that is very, very hot right now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this cool down naturally for around about 5 minutes. And the reason I'm going to let it cool down naturally is because I don't want to cause the board to go into thermal shock and end up cracking the solder balls because of thermal shock. And what that means is if we cool it down too quickly, the board itself is going to basically shock itself into cracking all the solder underneath the pads or underneath the chip. And we don't want that, because then it's kind of just undone everything that we've already done, and it can also kill the APU just by thermal shock. So we obviously don't want that. So we're going to avoid that at all costs by letting it cool down naturally. If that means taking another 5 minutes, that means taking another 5 minutes. It's not a big deal. We can wait. We can leave this and go ahead and do something else while we wait anyway. So I'm going to go and get myself a cup of coffee, and I'll be back when this has cooled down a little bit. Right, okay then, ladies and gents, so here we are. The board has fully cooled down, and I've actually left it for around about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, just to make sure it's completely cold. So what I'm going to do now is just remove this Kapton tape from here, and then I'm going to clean up the board, get some fresh thermal paste on, and pop it back in the chassis, and hopefully, fingers crossed, this works, because I really don't feel like reboarding, to be honest. Right, okay, so let's apply some fresh thermal paste. Let's try and put the right amount on this time. That should be plenty. Okay. Right, so okay, so as you can see, exactly the same board. There's my beautiful solder joints on the back, my beautiful soldering on the front. Okay, what do you think? Do you think it's going to work this time? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments down below. Got a bit of isopropyl alcohol there, never mind. Just a bit that's dripped through the board. Okie doke. And I appear to be missing a thermal pad off here now for some reason. 2 thermal pads off here now for some reason. It fell down somewhere, never mind. Let's pop a couple of fresh ones on there. So there's one. And where have the other thermal pads gone? Oh, it's on there. Never mind. Okie doke. Let's pop the heatsink clamp on without those washers underneath. Really hoping this is going to work. Let's screw that down. There we go. That's nice and tight. Flip it over. There we go. Let's get that Wi-Fi antenna back in place. So if this works now, we've got absolutely no reason to take it apart again because the console's been fully cleaned with fresh thermal paste as well. So fingers crossed. Right, what do you think? Do you think it's going to work? Okay, there we go. Right, let's turn it on. Pray for the best. 3, 2, 1. Okay, well it hasn't died. It would have shut off already. Yes! Yes, it works. We've got a white light. Yes, that's fantastic. Please give us a display. Please give us a display. Might take a while. No display. What's going on? Right, we have fan spin. Right, we've still got no display though. Why? Oh, come on, please give a display. Yes! Yes, cannot start the PS4. Yes, that's brilliant. Wow, I'm so happy now. Oh, yes. Right, let's see if we have front USBs now. That's awesome. Oh, if you could see the smile on my face. Look at that. Isn't she pretty? Yes! Right, let's see if it boots with this hard drive. So this is the customer's hard drive, I think. Is it? Yeah, 1407. For some reason there's only 2 screws in here. And this hard drive is reading as bad, ladies and gents. So this is going to need to be replaced. Is that spinning? Yes. Okay, let's see if it boots. So if it boots, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get a backup of the customer's data. If it boots. I'm going to attempt to get a backup of the data. Oh yes, I can't believe it worked. I'm going to attempt to get a backup of the data if it boots. Is it going to go white? Well, I might as well start screwing this back together because the console's working. I think. Checking system storage. Yes! That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so the hard drive is reading as bad. However, I will advise, because I mean, my repair is already going to be fairly expensive. So I will advise the person who sent this to me, the company who sent this to me, to change the hard drive. That is something that he can do. But I will try and get a backup of the customer's data. Oh yes, I'm glad that worked. All that work, the HDMI port, the hard drive not, well, the hard drive being wedged in. There was a lot wrong with this. I mean, I still don't know if it's going to work fully, but there was a fair bit wrong with this. Please give a display now. Oh, I better hold off on putting any more screws in, I suppose. I might have to check with another hard drive. This could have an issue with the HDMI encoder as well. That's going to be, I mean, that's going to be a pretty expensive repair if it is. Hard drive, reflow, HDMI port. Is there anything else that can go wrong with this? I mean, my repairs alone are going to be about £70 without the hard drive. But the problem is the console's only worth about 120. I should be holding off on putting these screws in, but I've got a feeling it's the hard drive that's causing the no display now. Alright, so there's a hard drive. So let's go into safe mode. So yeah, I think I'm probably not going to be charging for the HDMI port on this one, just given how much it's going to be coming to if I do. Let's pop in trusty old blue and reinstall system software. Okay. Right, okay, so just rebooting now. I was messing around with the HDMI port while that was installing, just to see if it was any, see if there was any issues, and there doesn't appear to be. But I did accidentally push it a little bit too hard, and it did knock the screen off. But while I was wiggling it normally, it was absolutely fine. So, and plus this HDMI cable is faulty as well, so it's yeah, it all appears fine, HDMI circuit wise. Hopefully we're going to get a display now. We do get a display. The question is, can we get 1080p? I'm not sure what it's in at the moment because I'm using my capture card. So I'm really not sure what the display is in at the moment. Temperatures seem fine. Fan is spinning. Let's have a look at the display. Sound and screen. Video output. We have 480p. Yep. We have 1080p. 720p. Sorry. No, we don't. We don't have 720p. Well, that's interesting. We don't have 720p, but it was working in 1080p. Okay. Right, well the problem now is I can't change back. Right, let's reboot it again and let's actually set it into 480p because I need to finish the test. Right, so let's keep it in 480p. Let's pop the customer's disc in. Let's see if it boots up a disc. Well, that was me that pressed that then. My bad. That disc drive doesn't sound healthy though. But it does load. Which means if I take that disc drive apart and just give it a clean, it should work. And it is installing. Yeah, it is copying. Right, okay, let's try and get into 1080p then. Sound and screen. Yeah, it's not going to let me in 1080p, is it? Oh! How about 720? Is it the HDMI port? I can change the HDMI port again. Right, so when I reset it, I think that's just my capture card not handling the handover. Right, I'm going to unplug my HDMI cable from the PC for a second. I think my capture card isn't handling the handover. And what I mean by that is it's not handling the handover from, say, for example, 480p to 720, 480p to 1080, things like that. That's what I think is going on. Right, I think what I need to do, I don't know if it's handling the handover very well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to go into safe mode, I'm going to change the resolution, and I'm going to change it to 1080p, and then I'm going to reboot. And see if it stays in 1080p. Right, so what I'm doing there is I'm turning it off and I'm just seeing if it stays in 1080p and seeing if it actually gives us a display when we reboot it. So here we go. Looks like it's not going to give us a display. So it looks like it's either the HDMI port or the HDMI encoder. I think it's the HDMI encoder, personally. Because the port appears fine. Right, I'm going to have to put this to one side until tomorrow and just see what the person who sent it says. Because that doesn't look good, does it? Right, so I'll put it to one side until tomorrow when I can speak to the person who sent it to me, and I'll see what they say. So I guess I'll catch you tomorrow. Okay, so hello again everyone. So it's the same day, or the same night rather. It's around about 3 AM right now. I'm going to be really quiet right now because I'm in my house. As you can see, this is not my workshop, and I'm on my desk with this exact same console. And the reason that I'm on my desk with this same console is because basically I worked on another console because I've got so much to do before 10 AM that I've just got to work through the night tonight. But I worked on another console and I experienced the exact same issue where I would change to 1080p, it would boot in 1080p, but then when I switched between resolutions, it wasn't switching over. So I think it's something to do with the HDMI capture card or the HDMI cables or something on that particular setup. So I've got to keep my voice down, but I'm going to test it now. I haven't tried it yet in the house, but I'm going to try it now and basically try and see if it works. So as I said, this is exactly the same console. You'll hear that weird noise from the disk drive. Right, so let's switch the monitor on. So I apologise about being real quiet and also about the poor quality audio. I'm using phone audio because obviously I don't have my lavalier mics set up in the house, and also the fact that I've got to capture through the phone, so this is the only way I can do it. Right, so I'm gonna go ahead and run this now, and it looks like we're in 1080p. So as you can see, we've still got FIFA 20 in there. This is the same console, so it looks like we're in 1080p. We need, what do we need? Center screen, video output. So let's see if it switches to 480p. Yes, it does. How about 720? Yes, it does. 1080? Yes, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to shut this down now. This looks like it's working, so all we've got to solve now is the disk drive issue, and we can call this done. So I'll shut it down. I'll go back in the workshop where I can actually talk properly, and then we'll call this one done. Right, hello then ladies and gents, welcome back. So let me just plug in my phone charger, and there we go. Okay, so please excuse the state of my desk. As I said, it is 3 AM right now, and it's, yeah, I haven't got time to tidy up. Okay, so that was really weird. Really not sure what's going on with the setup I've got at the moment. I'm going to have to look into that tomorrow. But this is done. This is working. What's going on? I don't know. It's something to do with either my capture card or the HDMI cables that I'm using. So basically what I did was I put this one to one side because, as I said, I was going to contact the person who sent it and say, look, there's something else wrong with it. What do you want me to do, sort of thing. And basically I started working on another console because I've got a few more to get done by 10 AM when DHL come and collect the parcel. So yes, that's a little bit of a time constraint, and it's usually not good. If I don't get them done, I don't get them done, but I'd rather get as many out as I can because it's the same cost to post them. So I would much rather get as many done as I possibly can in that time frame. But yeah, it's a bit weird that how that happened, but I don't know. So basically, this is working in 1080p. It's working in 720p and 480p. It is handling the handshake when I'm on my own gaming monitor, or not gaming monitor, it's just a PC monitor. But when I'm on my own gaming setup in the house, it's working. So as far as I'm concerned, technically this is done, and it's fixed. It's working. So all we've got to do is basically just get the disk drive sorted out, get that weird noise sorted out. Probably nothing I can do about that, if I'm honest. The disk drive works, but if it comes to it where I'm going to end up having to replace the disk drive to get rid of that strange noise, then it's not going to be worth doing. Very likely going to be something to do with drop damage on this particular console. That is my opinion anyway. If anyone thinks different, let me know down in the comments. You know, we've all got our opinions, but I'm going to say it's probably been dropped. And these do not like being dropped because of the design of them. And let's give it one final test, and if the disk drive is still noisy, as long as it reads, I'm going to leave it as it is. All I can do is try. So let's turn this on now. There we go. And that eject button doesn't work, does it? I'm gonna have to replace it. Well, okay, fine, whatever. Right, so we're getting no display on my setup again, of course, because why would we? Right, let me just turn this off. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll find a base, and then I'll replace the base, and then we'll go in the house to finish it off. Right, okay, so I've got another base here. This is a little bit dirty, but I'll give it a clean before I put it in the box. There we go. So can you hear that? So now the disk feed will work, and that is all she wrote. Right, there we go. So I'm going to take this back in the house now, and we'll finish off the video. Okay, ladies and gents, so obviously I've got to be quiet again. Let's just turn that on. And I'll turn my monitor on as well. And we have the PlayStation logo. No. Still pretty loud. I don't think there's going to be anything I can do with that, to be honest. It does load though. As you can see there, that is loading absolutely fine. So let's just double check. Right, okay, so I may as well summarise the video here then. So this console, by the looks of it, has suffered some drop damage, and as a result of that it has damaged several components, including the HDMI port, which I've replaced as a courtesy just to get this console back up and running. It's also damaged the APU and cracked solder balls underneath the APU, which obviously we've repaired by reflowing the APU. That worked absolutely perfectly. And then it's also damaged the disk drive and the case as well, so I've replaced the bottom of the case just to allow it to be able to eject a disc, because otherwise obviously the console can't be used for discs and things. So as you can see, that's ejecting absolutely perfectly now. The disk drive, if I was to replace a disk drive, can't give a disk drive away for free. You know, I've got plastics lying around, but I haven't got disk drives just lying around to give away for free. So obviously couldn't do that. If the business is so concerned about a disk drive, then obviously they can talk to the customer about that. But I'm not going to be doing any more work to this because it only came in for a blue light of death, and I've ended up replacing several components and replacing several of the other parts of the console as well. So it's also had a hard drive, I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but by replacing all of those we've managed to get this console back up and running again, and it is working as it should, albeit it is a little bit noisy, but it is working as it should, and this console can live again. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up, and if you want to see more trying to fix videos where I try and fix mainly consoles but sometimes other things too, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications so that you're notified every time that I upload. I am trying really hard to get to 5,000 subs before the end of the year, so if you could subscribe, it would really help out the channel a lot. But that's going to be it for now. Thanks very much for watching. It's been a pleasure, and until next time, I'll see you later. Bye for now.